let's get to the head of what I want to talk about, Venezuela. Um, we just entered a country, seized its leader after accusing him of being a fentanyl tracker. Then, this is up in my notes. Okay, you can Google search Justice Maduro unsealed indictment and you get the whole PDF. But I got the screenshot in the notes. The word fentanyl does not appear anywhere in the indictment. How many times has Dear Leader Pornstar Humper said the word fentanyl? Without ever putting it into context, without ever putting it into the bigger picture of both legal and illegal uses. Like I said, I had surgery a couple months ago. They had to put me under for 8 hours. What drug do you think I was on? Fentanyl. Okay. And by the way, waking up out of fentanyl, that's a high. You feel like your brain's on a roller coaster when you wake up. um, the reason we have fentanyl, I'll remind you before I get back to Venezuela, is because of the drug war. If we didn't have a drug war, we'd still be just dealing with moonshine and marijuana. It's like that old PBS NewsHour special they did about the West Virginia sheriff. He was an older guy. He's like 70 years old. He's still a sheriff of this county. And he actually said he actually took off his baseball cap with his sheriff logo on it, and he threw it on his desk, and he goes, yeah, I'm now regretting the drug war. I wish we were just still dealing with moonshine and weed. Because now he's dealing with his Oxycontin and meth. And now you're going to deal with fentanyl. So we've been barking about how Maduro is personally responsible for all the fentanyl in the world. The reason why people OD in America and why all these people are dying. Remember, he said 100 million people died on fentanyl last year. I think we'd have noticed that. I really do think we would notice that. So when I bring up these absurdities that come out of his fucking mouth, okay, I'm repeating it for effect and education. Okay, you cannot forget the lies this guy has told. And if I feel seem a little frazzled today, I am. I'm genuinely mad. I'm genuinely upset today. Okay, you tell us any story you want to tell so you can keep out of prison. That's what our entire country, governance, society, and culture is about right now. Keeping one adjudicated rapist, one suspected pedophile, one known convicted business fraud out of prison. So he makes up the story. Fentanyl. He said fentanyl how many times? Thousands? Fentanyl is not in the unsealed indictment. The word does not exist in the indictment. So why did you invade Venezuela? Oh, this isn't an invasion. Hugh Hewitt on Fox this morning. This is not an invasion. This is not regime change. They're an established country. Right after Hugh Hewitt says that, the headlines start bursting onto social media, Google News feed, AP, the works. Trump announces the U.S. is running Venezuela. It's not regime change. What is it? We just deposed a leader under a false charge, charged him with a 1934 gun statute, and overthrew a country and declared that we're now running the country. If it isn't an invasion, it isn't regime change. What the fuck is it? What Nazi fantasy bullshit are you going to sell me now? Trump announced also this morning he is in charge of Venezuelan oil. He will sell it off to other countries. This doesn't sound like a military operation, as it sounds as a criminal shakedown where we kidnap the leader of the other gang and then take his cocaine and guns and make it part of our gang. Okay? Just replace the cocaine on the streets in the 1980s, the shit I dealt with, and put it into Venezuelan oil, Venezuelan minerals, Venezuelan metals, and jewels, and everything else that they have as a resource. You told us 100 times this was about fentanyl. You had to murder the fucking fishermen because if we're not at war and we're killing people on the high seas, it's just murder. Just fucking murder. I said this the other day in another live video. I'm on an operation in the army, and we just walk in, and nobody in the room's armed. Sure, they got guns, they've got in a foot locker, they've got dope in a closet, but I just walk into a room and go, "You're all guilty." Okay, that's not law enforcement. That's not a military operation. That's just murder. So we were murdering fishermen to stop the fentanyl trafficking that Maduro was personally responsible for, according to everybody, not just Trump. Everybody had a tweet about this. Everybody in the cabinet who's a right-wing loser. Everybody in Congress who eats shit out of dear leader's adult diaper. All had a tweet how Maduro was personally responsible for all the fentanyl. Then why isn't fucking fentanyl in the fucking indictment Bondi just released a couple hours ago? They went to a grand jury to indict him on a gun charge? By the way, Massey is blowing a fucking gasket on Twitter right now. Uh, Representative Massey, the one who's working with Ro Khanna of California to release the Epstein files, Massey is just losing his ever-loving shit right now on Twitter. He's like, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You just arrested a foreign leader. Remember, you wouldn't charge Kyle Rittenhouse with a gun crime, even though he was a child, which it was illegal in that state to carry that type of weapon by that age of a person, and he was driven to a riot by his mommy. You wouldn't charge him or his mommy with anything, but you're going to charge a foreign sovereign leader after making up shit for a year on a 1934 gun crime. Who thinks this is legit? Anybody? I'm seriously asking. Who the fuck thinks this is legit? This is like me, instead of going after Tootie's crew or the Sanford crew or the Serreños or Norteños out in the valley, instead of going after them, I just walk up to the deli owner who's never even gotten a parking ticket in his fucking life, and I walk up, put a gun in his face, and tell him, "I'm arresting you for cocaine trafficking." Or just walking in the room and putting a bullet through his head like you did to the fisherman. This is not law enforcement, people. And how about the first thing my friend, we talk all the time on text. We played on the same ice hockey team. We're both techies. He's a project manager. I'm more of a code and infrastructure guy. We've been good friends for years. First text I get this morning is, "Did we just Noriega Madero?" Yes. Yes, we did. We totally just did that. Because any crime will do when you're trying to rebuild your personal Iron Curtain. Why does Putin want Ukraine? That's the start of the new Iron Curtain. Moldova is next. Then Lithuania and Latvia. Then you're going to be fighting in Warsaw and Berlin. Idiots. Putin just doesn't want Chechnya, Georgia, and Ukraine. He wants the Russian sector of Berlin back, you fucking idiots. Remember, Putin was the goddamn team chief for the Russians in Dresden in East Germany when the wall came down. He wants it all back. And because we have a idiot, stooge, dementia patient asshole that you couldn't figure out was a convicted felon, adjudicated rapist, and a suspected pedophile, we've got an asshole as president who wants to copy Putin. Venezuela's the first domino to fall in this hemisphere. Mark my word. Anybody want to bet me? I just moved a lot of cash yesterday. I got plenty of cash on hand. I'll bet anybody who wants me, $100 on the head. Another country falls within days, weeks, or months. This is not over. Okay. Now here's what's supposed. Now I'm going to go a step back, and I don't mean to get overly pissed at Adam Kingsinger, because I do like him and that he stood up after the insurrection and did the right thing. But I just watched a video, and like I said, I'm already tweaked. Okay, and do not. If you're somebody like Adam, I'm talking directly to you, buddy. Do not do the ends justifying the means bullshit. Well, I don't like Maduro, and Maduro was a bad guy, so that's not the place we start this fucking discussion. We start this discussion with a false accusation leveled as a distraction to the Epstein files. Distraction to dear leader porn star Humper being convicted 34 times on felony charges for business fraud. Being adjudicated as a rapist who raped E. Jean Carroll. Then defamed her after he was adjudicated to have assaulted her. I am not in the Epstein files. You are the Epstein file, motherfucker. This is why we're invading Venezuela. He's trashed the economy. He is running farmers into the ground. Plus, farmer suicide is skyrocketing. It's becoming worse than the military or the police. Their suicide rate. Okay? He doesn't care. Hegseth doesn't care. Bondi doesn't care. Blanche doesn't care. Witkoff doesn't care. Stephen Miller doesn't care. They want you to fail. You dared question the authority of a wannabe dictator. So he is going to build his fiefdom in an entire hemisphere, mirroring Trump's aspirations, while running our country into the dirt. There's no inflation. Then why is car insurance up 52% since the lockdowns? There's no inflation. Then why is electricity sky fucking high and is anything but going up? Okay? Every policy is an abject failure. Every policy is a purposeful con. The bad thing that's been set up here, and it's going to be made worse by people doing the ends justify the means. Yeah, we all know Maduro was a commie asshole. Does that justify dear leader and his cabinet being commie assholes? I don't think so. Because they're following a gangster communist in Putin. That's what they're doing. The one who's making the policy for the United States of America is in this order. Putin, Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, Orban of Hungary, then Donald Trump and his asshole crew. Meanwhile, Congress is asleep at the fucking wheel. Now, here's the problem. Here is the serious fucking problem with what they just did. They just legitimized kidnapping a foreign leader. So if Russia Spetsnaz go into Kyiv and they kidnap Zelensky, that's legal and good because Trump just did it to Maduro. When North Korea, Kim Jong-un sneaks into South Korea and grabs the South Korean president, or China goes into Taiwan and grabs their leader, Ali Oxenfree, all fucking good, right? Because it's the same thing dear leader's regime just did. Now, Putin grabs Zelensky. Then Putin declares that he is running Ukraine. And now he's in charge of all the metals and the gems and the oil and all the resources of Ukraine. Now, fucking what? See what this is set up? A nightmare in real time. Any country can go to any other country, snag their leader, go, he committed a gun crime. That's okay. The insurrectionist who had staged the heavy weapons across the Potomac River to go cross the river and murder Capitol Police in a QRF scenario they had made up in their heads. Those guys got pardoned. The guys that had premeditated plan to murder Capitol Police officers got a pardon. We're going to charge Maduro with a gun crime from 1934. Fuck all y'all. That's my response to this bullshit. Oh, and we're going to give pardon after pardon after pardon to well-known international drug dealers. Maduro's responsible for all the fentanyl. What's on the charge sheet? Not a single mention of fentanyl. Are you getting the con yet, America? Are you still in a fucking coma? We need a $1 trillion a year military budget on top of another $500 million in $500 billion in intelligence budgets, so we can go invade another country and not arrest a drug trafficker, and then we do arrest drug traffickers, we let them go. I am so pissed off today. I'm this close to agreeing to the BLM knuckleheads. Maybe we do need to cut the budgets of the military and the paramilitary and the police. Well, the police are the paramilitary, but maybe we do need to cut their budgets because they have too much money. They're too busy. They think the grandma selling tamales who's never committed a crime is the one that should be physically abused and arrested. You got too much time, you have too much budget, you have too much resources, you have too much staff. If you think that tamale grandmother's your fucking law enforcement problem, you've got too much time on your hands. And you definitely have too much of our taxpayer dollars. If the military can only be used for this horse shit in Venezuela while we abandon Ukraine, the real global fight has been in Ukraine for years. We lose Ukraine, you lose Moldova. It's not a maybe. You lose Ukraine, it is the start of the domino fall in the old Eastern region, the old Eastern Soviet region. Okay? And I know what I'm saying is true. You know why it's true? The German Panzerwehr just moved to Lithuania. The 10th Heavy Armor from Germany is now stationed permanently in Lithuania. The big giant German fucking tanks. Okay, the ones with the charm armor. Germany has forward deployed them. Okay, France is on the ground in Eastern Europe. Belgium's on the ground. This is real, folks. Okay, and now our idiot dementia patient leader trying to cover up his own crimes, his own misdeed, and his entire criminal organization, his street gang, while trying to cover all this shit up. He's copying Putin. Oh, I know there was a coup in Venezuela, what, like 58? Okay. There's a whole bunch of coups in South America in the 50s and 60s. Which one of those did well? None. Pinochet? Ring any bells? I've fucking written essays about that. We overturned a country, they got Pinochet. Pinochet was a sadist. Desaad had nothing on this guy. Okay. He would use any form of torture, including trained dogs to rape people. Okay. Is that a successful outcome of a coup launched by the US government? Is that a good use of taxpayer dollars? And not to mention, we have been propagandized and disinformed on an endless basis for 10 years to set up what? Or shit like this? We're pardoning every fraudster under the sun. We're pardoning every drug dealer under the sun. We're pardoning corrupt Congress people for bribery. Bribery, again, the word that's in the Constitution as the no-no. They're not even getting to trial. And they're getting pardons because dear leader thinks the guy from Texas would have switched parties and joined him and gotten him another vote because everything he's doing is quid pro quo. Why did he just take over Venezuela? Because now he thinks he's the CEO of Venezuelan oil. Dear leader, CEO, Venezuelan order. He literally announced, front page of the fucking Hill this morning, the U.S. is running Venezuela. You can't even run the United States of America. You're driving that into the fucking ground. And it's all political theater. I just put up a short video before the live session showing Trump's social feed that looks like Playgirl's fashion December issue. Look at all the fashionable manly men pointing and standing firmly and strongly, attentively. Seriously, the closeted members of MAGA are literally in their closet jerking off right now to that feed this morning. All the manly men. Our kids have no future. Our grandkids are fucking screwed. But Congress is asleep at the wheel while this bullshit goes down in Venezuela. Because they are asleep at the fucking wheel. They do not have a clue what to do, and they don't have the balls to do it even if they figured it out. Because if this shit isn't impeachable, just like the insurrection wasn't impeachable, then there is no America. It doesn't exist anymore. We are the United Soviet States under dear leader. We are not the United States of America anymore. And what? Did Maduro not buy enough $ Trump or $ Millennia? Did he not offer up a straight bribe like Tim Cook and so many others? Did they not properly donate to his library, his campaign, his ballroom, whatever quid pro quo? Did Maduro not shake his tits at dear leader like the libertarian gal did to get the Silk Road guy off on a pardon? What exactly did Maduro not do? It's like that scene in Burn After Reading with John Malkovich. Whose ass did I not kick? Yes, it was awful to wake up to. It really was. Because the lameness of the political theater is so bad. This is just fucking annoying beyond all belief. And here one more right-wing asshole, red hat fool, Scott Jennings on CNN, that little bitch boy, say, this is the anti-war president. You. He declared war on America first. Remember that. Oh, remember how they told us, like, oh my God, we're always 3 days away from war with Iran. Iran's in almost a complete collapse now. They got riots in the fucking streets in all their big cities. Their economy has completely collapsed. Their currency has collapsed. But oh my God, we have to be at permanent war with a country who's bankrupt. Why? So it forces us to spend more on our military so we can invade Venezuela? Remember how they told us Iran was the threat? China was the threat, but not North Korea, because in the first term, our dear leader and their dear leader fell in love and started writing love letters to each other. But now the problem isn't North Korea, China, or Iran. It's Venezuela. What is it going to be tomorrow morning? Guyana? Colombia? Honduras? Argentina? Who fucking knows? Who fucking knows? Because there's a pattern here. You have to be a dictator, but you can't be a dictator who doesn't like Trump. Because Maduro is a leftist communist dictator. There's no doubt about it. And Maduro is an asshole, but the ends don't justify the means. Sorry, once again, Adam, you were full of shit in your video this morning. Like, my concern today, have they actually eliminated sovereignty today? Is this the death of the non-nuclear Westphalian nation state? Because if you don't have nuclear weapons, we can just invade you, or we can blow you completely off the map. And then we can declare that we run your country, we own your oil and whatever resources we want to steal. And the fact is how the regime under dear leader Pornstar Humper just played into the angst of the left and of the leftists. Oh, all wars are about oil. Well, that's not true. A lot of modern wars are, but even it's not empirically true in the modern wars either. But then they invade in Venezuela, and the first thing they drop is the drugs. The second thing they announce is we now own control and will sell Venezuelan oil because we have the best oil companies in the world. Of course, of course, of course. We're best at everything, including the best at violating international law and setting up a global nightmare where any country can invade another country, seize their leaders, charge them with Mickey Mouse crimes, and decide they're now in control. Ukraine's next, folks. And in fact, I'm convinced remember that nightmare meeting, the first term? This is it. Remember when he kicked the interpreters out of the room and talked to Putin alone? This is it. We're talking a really evil version of the Potsdam Conference. This is it. Now I can just imagine how, like, Japan, France, Canada, Germany, I Holland, the Netherlands, I I I can just imagine that they're probably, like, they're in they're in a total mode of, "Where the hell do we go now?" There is no international law anymore. It was just eviscerated by this regime. My suspicion/assumption is this abandonment of international law was fully coordinated with Putin. Yes, they can't run this country. Yes, so they're invading others. Yes, but did you expect to get anything done with this asshole in charge? He's only sitting in the political space so he can avoid going to prison for a litany of reasons. Pick one. You've had photos released. I looked them up. They're verified photos. Them sitting there with teenage girls that are half undressed. Pedophiles, rapists, dementia patients, assholes, crazies, and Nazis are in charge of our fucking government. Dear New York State, please do not be as fucking stupid as you've been for cycle after cycle, year after year. Do not vote for Chuck Schumer next time. Get him the fuck out of office. And the rest of the lame motherfuckers have to go too. Because, yeah, we can all be mad at Dear Leader Pornstar Humper, but remember, the Democrats are a failure as a political party. It doesn't help when the majority of people, like I said the other day, 2022 only had a 42% turnout for registered voters. It doesn't help when people don't get out and vote. That was my whole last video, was get out and vote. Voting actually works. But you have to actually get out there and do it for it to work. Okay? But we have reelected the same assholes on the left time and time again just to watch America get deconstructed. And the faith some people on the left have with sitting politicians and the Democrats is just unbelievable. Nancy Pelosi's gonna codify Roe v. Wade. She never even tried. Nancy Pelosi's only concerns were getting reelected and increasing her portfolio and winning the title of Madam Speaker. Oh, look, I achieved something. I'm just not going to help you. Because in the end, did ACA help any American? Temporarily, a tiny bit. Remember, ACA punished the self-employed to pay for the poor. So they didn't have to tax Musk, Ellison, Zuckerberg, Trump's cabinet, Trump himself, Jared Kushner. So they would not get a tax increase. The ultra wealthy wouldn't get a tax increase. The ACA completely screwed the self-employed. Okay. Now we don't even have the ACA. It's a zombie law as of 2 days ago. Just is there an incumbent in Congress that deserves their job right now? We knew the War Powers Act was a problem. How do we know that? Because both Democrats and Republicans and independents all said it. Now look at the shit today in Venezuela. And this whole claim by the far right that this is some high and mighty fucking military mission equivalent to World War II. Fuck off with that propaganda and bullshit. This is a war of choice and a war of distraction. and a war of profit. Yes, I'm going to agree with the lefties today. Okay. This war is about oil. I have to take that at face value when the guy makes a press conference and declares he's now the CEO of Venezuelan oil. Just like he runs the Kennedy Center as the Trump Kennedy Center, soon to be the not Kennedy Center. It's going to be the Trump Center, and then he's going to claim it's his own property. The golf courses on Andrews and the other public courses in Washington, D.C., he's trying to seize those right now. When this is all said and done, himself or somebody in his family or somebody closely connected to him is going to be the one making the money off of shipping Venezuelan oil out of the country. And just to clarify, if you actually think all, quote, all wars are about oil, no, Grenada was about a political distraction. Okay. All it was. Panama was not. Panama was a joke. Noriega was a joke. Noriega did exactly what the CIA wanted him to do. But then when he came too much of a mess in the news, we had to get a mop and a bucket and go clean up our own mess. So if the police are being used to go after poor people and brown people because they're poor and brown, and the military is going after leaders because they need a distraction to the Epstein files, a 34 count business fraud conviction, and a civil tort adjudication saying he's a rapist in a department store dressing room, then why are we spending this money as taxpayers? And I'm not saying we don't need professional police or a professional military, but I'm saying they have to be over budgeted by a gazillion dollars if these things are their priority. We spent $4 million in overtime crossing out names of Trump's and his friends in the Epstein files. That's where our law enforcement and our justice budget is going. Then they have too much budget. ICE can only beat up the tamale grandma. Oh, by the way, at Christmas I got real tamales. My father-in-law's friend brought some over on Christmas Eve night, and he gave us like a dozen freshly made tamales. They're so good. I had tamale and eggs for breakfast for days. Real Mexican food from real Mexicans. Um, yeah, this is another concern. I know Trump doesn't like Scheinbaum in Mexico. Is she the next one to be arrested on false charges or just trumped up charges? Now, I can't get over this part. The Second Amendment absolutist gun fetishist crowd has charged a sovereign foreign leader with a gun crime under U.S. law. How's that even fucking possible? If he possesses a gun in Venezuela, how is that a violation of U.S. law? Team America, world police. Like literally, who is next? I fear it's Zelensky. Spetsnaz is going to be like Spetsnaz is going to be a real threat to Zelensky. Not that they weren't already, but now Putin thinks he's got a legal out with the world because of what dear leader porn star Humper just did in Venezuela. Don't get me started about Africa. Holy shit. These African dickhead warlords. Oh, now I have the legal justification. There is no international law. All I have to say is he committed a gun crime under a law written 90 years ago that didn't even occur in my country. I'm going to go arrest him. Now, do you understand what I'm saying about voting? You get it? It's not just about you and me voting. It's not about Brian or Carolyn or Chris or Teddy or Helen. That's not about that. It's about getting the country in the mode where everybody understands they have to vote. They have to learn what these candidates are really about. They have to really learn about the policies so they can dissect the policy issues from the propaganda and the bullshit. Why are we attacking people in the streets with masked federal agents to lamely try to hide the fact that 1,500 plus felons and other criminals from the insurrection on January 6th got a blanket pardon for everything, including assaulting peace officers? He supports the police. He's all about the thin blue line. Bullshit. Now, I haven't said this in public. I don't think I have, but I'll say it now. Yeah, I'm getting sick and tired of the Capitol Police turning into social media stars. Okay. Every time I watch that video, the one I saw when Liz and Adam Schiff, Adam Kingsinger and Adam Schiff were doing the hearings, with Benny and the crew that stood up. They showed that video of that officer getting hit in the head with a fire extinguisher, and nobody dropped the suspect with the weapon. I'm sorry, unless you put two in the chest and one in the head, you're not a hero. Shut the fuck up. The building was taken. You lost the battle. Them kind of claim they're fucking heroes is like the fucking people who praise the Alamo loss. You lost. Well, we also lost Vietnam, Iraq, and a few other things, and people praise that shit too. That's okay. I'm not, I'm part of the problem. Yeah, I lost the drug war. So, yeah, first they need to learn to read. That's a problem. I talked about that, Cheryl. And we got a generation and a half of kids who can't read 4 paragraphs and tell you who the 4 paragraphs are about. They can't read long novels. They literally can't pay attention long enough. A whole generation of people who cannot read, who are fixated on their screens. And I'm not being a hypocrite here. I have every technical device you can possibly imagine. I just don't have a phone. I have an iPad and a mini iPad. Well, the mini iPad's just my hotspot when I'm out on the road. But yeah, I own lots of tech toys for sure. Okay. But I'm sitting in a room full with recording equipment and computer technology. Um, but yeah, that's a real problem. That's a real problem. If you cannot achieve a high reading comprehension, you cannot be a functional adult. You definitely can't be an informed adult. Like, not bragging or anything, but yeah, I get into some, you know, complicated subjects, and books that are pretty deep reading. Okay. The other one right here is time series analytics with Python. That's what I do. Okay. Now you have to sit down and read these books. I got to get a cup of coffee or a Diet Coke and because I got to plow through these books and understand doing dense technical reading is hard. It's hard for anybody. Except for my daughter, I think, because she can blow through, she's an environmental scientist. She can blow through like 10 studies and then read them in the afternoon, sit down at dinner and tell you everything about all 10 studies, um, including the math and how they did. But for a lot of us, yeah, I mean, it's work to read dense material. Okay. But we've raised a generation and a half of kids who can't do reasonable comprehension. Put them into the political landscape in 5 to 10 years. If you're hungry, you can't learn. That's true. That's actually been studied, Cheryl. That's actually true. That's why my wife and I are not only pro public education, we are completely pro free breakfast and free lunch. Just tax Zuckerberg. I don't give a fuck. Our problem why we can't afford things is we don't tax billionaires. We've taken job creators and turned them into demigods, and now they're layoff managers. They're not even job creators. Okay. So yeah, and by the way, the very hateful reason why a lot of people don't want to feed the poor kid a breakfast or a lunch is they do not want them succeeding. They know because they see it in their own kids. I know I raised 3 kids. I mean, if our kids were hungry, it was time to stop and have a snack because hungry kids don't pay attention. Okay. Maybe it's time for a couple of grapes, a cracker, some cheese, little juice box. Okay. Then we'll sit down. We'll do another exercise. You're right. You're 100% correct. If you're hungry, you can't learn. If you can't learn, you can't read. If you can't read and you don't practice at reading, you cannot comprehend. This is hard to digest. And the whole era of Trumpianism has been hard for me to digest being a Cold War soldier. Because in the Cold War, whether was my friends in South Korea on the DMZ or my direct colleagues, my West German buddies, um, my homies and homettes in West Germany, we actually thought we were doing something. We thought the curve was heading in a good direction. We were bending toward the good, not toward the evil. There were still risks. That's why there were so many troops, in West Germany and Belgium and Italy. Um, we had an entire elite brigade in Berlin, the Berlin Brigade. Um, Back in the day, they were one of the most elite groups in the army, the Berlin Brigade. Elite, elite, elite. Got plenty of funding, got plenty of training. Did some training with those guys, mostly like sniper ops, sniper counter ops. You don't let the infantry just walk through West Berlin. You start shooting the officers. That sort of shit. Um, so yeah, we to sit here and watch how this curve is going back towards the evil Soviet Union style mentality, not just in Russia but here in the United States. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. Um, it's heartbreaking because it doesn't matter whether I mean, I know combat is a hell of a lot more stressful. And like I said, and I always admit, I was a cop in the military. I was a cop when I got out. Military and paramilitary cop duty. Still saw a lot of violence, but it's not combat. I never claimed it was combat. But even when you're not in combat, when you're in peacetime operations, even peacetime training, there's a death toll. There's a psychological toll. Okay. More than one of the people I saw attempt suicide or commit suicide. I've been to calls as an MPI, a military police investigator, basically the detectives like Barney Miller. I've been to suicide calls where it was my friend who had committed suicide. I know helicopter pilots, infantrymen, tankers, all have died in accidents. Okay. So whatever the circumstances in the military, it's a dangerous job. It's a tough job. People get hurt. People take the mental blows and people die. But it was a risk worth taking. At least we thought so back then. And one of I talked about this the other day, but it just came to my mind again. So I'll talk about it again. I watched Bohemian Rhapsody on Blu-ray. I've gone back to buying physical media. I have a whole cabinet full, and I got on the streaming kick for a while, but now the streamers are pissing me off. It's all turning into old cable. Who gives a shit? So I bought Bohemian Rhapsody, the docudrama about Queen. No, that's not true, Cheryl. Germany is not Nazi again. That's just AfD. Action for Deutschland is the Nazi group, and they're a tiny, tiny minority. They don't even have any seats this term. And my German family hates their guts, and most people in Germany are liberal Democrats who not only believe in democracy and freedom, uh, absent Trump, they love the United States. They consider us friends. So please don't say Nazi is Germany again. That's hurtful. It's a small group of assholes, just like it's tiny fraction even compared to MAGA here. And yes, the AfD are Nazis. Yes, Elon Musk has sucked up to the German Nazis and the AfD. All that's true. But Germany itself is much more a liberal democracy than we are right now. Um, so anyways, back to Bohemian Rhapsody. I was in West Germany when that broadcasted live, and we went to a picnic, a barbecue at one of our guys on our unit was married to a German girl, and her parents had a little ranch, so we all went out there, bought a bunch of food and beer, and had a big party and everything, and watched Live Aid. When I watched the Blu-ray and I saw the whole scene with Live Aid again, oh, I broke down in tears because that was one of the moments that we really thought we were doing something. We really thought the world was changing for the better. We were coming together to help other people to solve a problem. Um, because despite how the media tried to tamp down on how bad the famine was in Africa, everybody knew how bad it was. It was the worst loss of life since the Great Wars. And the numbers per day of people dying were small cities in the United States or Canada. Um, the famine was unbelievably bad, but we did come together. Okay. So yeah, when I watched Bohemian Rhapsody and saw Rami Malek do such a good job as Freddie Mercury, and I love Queen. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. They're uh, definitely in the pantheon of Rush, Zeppelin, Van Halen, Deep Purple, Frank Zappa. I mean, they're just monuments to music. And culturally, their performance at Live Aid was massive. And like if I ever met Brian May or John Taylor, anybody affiliated with Queen, I would first thing I would tell them is how much they lifted our spirits at Live Aid. We were pumped after Live Aid. We thought the good of the world was overcoming the evil of the world, and we're ready to take a stand and fight against the rightful things we should be pushing back on, and doing the good things to help the people who really need help. Okay? You know, I still remember the day the Berlin Wall started to come down. I was working night shift and my wife was working at the accounting office, and she calls me at home. She goes, "Oh my God, are you listening to the news?" So I run to the TV. I turn on the big console TV, been in our apartment, click on cable, see what's going on, tune into CNN, and I see them chopping at the wall with sledgehammers. Um, my wife rushes home for lunch. We didn't eat lunch. We just sat on the couch and cried. We couldn't believe that the Berlin Wall was coming down in our lifetime, and there was nothing to stop it. Once the people started moving through the wall and the checkpoints were down, we got it. We won. At least we thought we did. That's the hard part. You know, where do we go through here? How do we get through 2026? My video today was going to be something completely different. It was going to be about John Roberts' end of the year, 2025, end of the year judiciary report, which was quite interesting. I'll talk about that next in the next video. Yeah, we thought we were going somewhere in the 80s. Even with Reagan, because a lot of us saw the problems with Reagan right out of the gate. Anderson saw it. Anderson left the Republican Party and ran against him as an independent, calling his spend money while giving huge tax breaks bullshit. His military budget bullshit. I've said this before, I'll say it again. We'd probably be better off with a true anti-communist conservative as president in 1981. And that would have been Anderson from Illinois or Frank Zappa from California. Definitely wasn't Reagan. Reagan was the start of the downfall. I now realize that. Reagan was the start of the modern downfall of our country. We try to repair ourselves after Nixon, and we worked hard after Nixon. I've talked about that too. How we created all these laws, like the Procedures Act and the War Powers Act, and all these other things to rein in a criminal executive. When that's exactly what Nixon and Spiro Agnew were running. They were running a criminal executive. Hindsight, so was Reagan. Iran Contra. But this whole religious further, um, this whole compendium we're stuck in. This is not what we were hoping for when we were in West Germany. I mean, you don't. Let me put it this way: you don't have to be a peacenik. You don't have to be sitting humming John Lennon 24/7 to believe peace is a good thing. Peace is the answer. Hell, my father-in-law, the crazy Command Sergeant Major Airborne Ranger Green Beret, he believes in peace. I believe in peace. Peace and prosperity used to be a thing. Not anymore. We're at war with ourselves. And it doesn't make any sense. Like how we get through 2026 now, because I think they have an agenda to turn the volume up, ramp up the crazy, do anything in this hemisphere and anything in Europe to create a wall around the criminal regime led by a street gang leader. Like today, I'm not sure how we get through 2026. I'm not sure how we get through the elections, the midterms. I'm not giving up hope. I don't want to give up that impression. But I don't have a lot of clarity because the lawlessness of what just happened in Venezuela is so beyond the pale and so an anthem to what we wanted again in West Germany. Cheryl says, vote in more women. Yeah, I agree with that. Young, okay, the old dingbat women are the same problem as the old dingbat men. Get rid of them. The gentrocracy's got to go. But yeah, younger, independent, women's fine by me. Have a good platform. Tell me how you're going to actually fix something. And if you're voting for a woman, ask her how she's going to actually codify healthcare for women, because Feinstein, Pelosi, and many others refuse to do it. Okay. It's a valid argument to say men do not have any restrictions on their healthcare in 50 states, nor does their healthcare change depending on which state they live in or which state they happen to be trying to get healthcare in. That's not a thing for men. It is for women. How is a woman candidate going to address that? Because other women in power, other women in great power, refuse to act. What will they do? So I'm sure the news is going to get a lot more chaotic because now they have to cover their ass. Because one of the funniest things that came up this morning was, oh, we had to take down Maduro. It was all about our self-defense of America. It was an emergency. We had to do it. Oh, JSOC spokesman. Yeah, we've been planning this for months. Oh, so it's been a months and months long emergency. And you had to do it starting months ago. Okay. Okay. Now, this is the exact argument they just lost in court. It was an emergency in Chicago, so I needed to send in National Guard. It was an emergency in LA. I had to send in the Marines. The emergency never existed. That's why he lost the court cases. Dramatically lost the court cases. But now in Venezuela, it was an emergency. It was all about national security emergencies. You said the national security emergency was fentanyl and the southern border. They're bringing the crime. Remember? What's happening? The sands shift every hour of every day under this regime as they try to cover up crime after illegality after illegality after every unconstitutional move they make. And I fear 2026 is going to be a lot worse. I literally think Venezuela is just the opening salvo for a multi-country invasion by the United States, all to place far right wingers beholden to Trump and his regime so he can create a hemisphere Cold War style Iron Curtain. But instead of the Iron Curtain being on Germany and Czechoslovakia's borderline, it's going to be the entire Western Hemisphere. So the disruptions he could cause in 2026 could be devastating, not just to the country, but to Europe, to Asia, to the technocracies of the Pacific, to Australia, New Zealand. I don't see a bright picture right now. I see where not just America's in trouble, the world's in trouble. We're not fulfilling any democratic or any liberal in the sense of liberal versus illiberal in the Lockean sense goals. Any sort of worthy goal to fulfill freedom, liberty, democracy. The opposite is happening right now. And that's why I wanted to talk about John Roberts. And I'll probably jump on, maybe not later, but probably tomorrow. And I'll talk about John Roberts' annual report because it's a bit of change for the tone of the federal courts and the tone of SCOTUS. But yeah, so that's my thoughts. We're in trouble. We are now being governed by an out of control regime with a criminal street gang leader who's trying to cover up his own crimes and the lengths they will go to distract people from their own crimes. Because remember, the moves of Abrego Garcia and the others to El Salvador, that was not a deportation. That's the wrong word. That was forced exile. That was not a deportation. Okay. And then when they got caught doing forced exiles, illegal deportations, and the court said to knock it off, they just went, fuck you. Then they turned around and brought Abrego Garcia back to charge him with human trafficking based on a traffic stop years ago where nobody or their brother in all those years associated human trafficking to the stop. That's what Venezuela's about. You see the pictures that got released with the half-dressed teenage girls? And did you see the news stories that were published 60 times over about how they had teenage girls being farmed between Mar-a-Lago and Jeffrey Epstein's compound? One, why were teenage girls alone in the room giving massages to grown-ass men? Then why were you basically swapping girls in between two pedo camps? That's what Venezuela's about. Pete Hegseth's incompetent. Bondi's incompetent. Todd Blanche is a moron. Witkoff is literally sucking Putin's balls and trying to sell out Ukraine. That's what Venezuela's about. Okay, I'll leave it there. Until next time, please read, be informed, get out and vote, be independent, vote younger, vote for women, whatever it takes. And that's all of us. And I don't care what your stripe is, as long as you're not MAGA. We need to make a change. And you have to be well informed to make that change. So read up. And please, until next time, think about it.